Everybody, to the Snap podcast. My name is Tyler Kluver, and let's consider this a personal audio journal of mine. A lot of rambling, a lot of random stuff, anything relevant in my personal life that has to do with health, fitness, diet, business, being an entrepreneur, and simply trying to unlock the avenues of personal growth that help me find the most happy, fulfilling, and free life that I can live. I hope that you guys can take something away from the show and maybe find some entertainment in it as well. Thank you so much for listening, and let's get to it. All right, we're back. Another episode of the Snap podcast. We are now going to enter a 4-week, at least 4-week, probably. No, that's a lie. It's going to be at least 6 weeks. And the reason it's going to be 6 weeks is because we're doing a pre-open podcast right now for episode 112, I believe. The open is then going to run for 3 weeks, in which I will have, for the first 2 weeks, I'll have a recap and then preview. And then for the final week, I will have a full open recap, which will be technically the 4th episode of this, let's call it the 2023 CrossFit series. So we're going to preview it today. We're going to talk about my goals. For those that don't know, if you're listening on the day that this comes out, Wednesday the 15th, the CrossFit Worldwide Open, which is open to anybody, by the way, if you'd like to sign up, starts tomorrow, Thursday the 16th. General format of the Open is it's supposed to be user-friendly. Some of the equipment and the flavor of CrossFit is going to, at times, make that hard for people who don't go to CrossFit specific gyms, but technically, if you can find the right equipment, you can pay your $20 entry fee and then make an account and find yourself on the worldwide leaderboard next to me and the champion from last year and everybody else who is doing this around the world. I estimate that it'll probably be somewhere around, I don't know, 100, maybe 75 to 100,000 men around the world are going to enter this competition and do this. So it's fun stuff, fun times. It's obviously what I'm into, and it's what we're going to be talking about for the next few weeks. And if you're not into CrossFit, that's okay. These are going to be heavily CrossFit focused, but I think a lot of the mindset tips, a lot of the mental talk that I will go through over, especially in the next 3 weeks, when we're talking about me actually performing, doing, getting to compete in this thing that I train for 10, 15 hours a week. I think that if you're interested in mental toughness and competitiveness and sports in general, I think that you may find some quality value in these episodes. So this first one's going to be a little scattered. One, because I need to train, and I like to be efficient with my time. And I was done pitter pattering away with trying to come up with the order in which I was going to talk about things in this episode. So I said, fuck it. We'll do it live. We'll just come up with the order live. So, but anyway, back to that quick schedule. Preview this week. Then we'll have week 1 recap, week 2 recap, week 3 recap. After 3 weeks in that last week, barring injury or some catastrophic event, I imagine to find myself moving on to the next stage, which is quarterfinals. There is 1 weekend in between the last week of the Open. There's the yawn. Oh, fuck. The last week of the Open and then the quarterfinal weekend. The quarterfinal weekend is different. For those who are new around here, the Open is 1 workout. You have to complete that workout over the course of the weekend, right? You have Thursday evening through Monday evening to get in 1 workout, 1 score. And then those 3 weeks go on to the leaderboard for a cumulative score at the end. The quarterfinals, the second stage of 4 to the CrossFit Games, is 1 weekend. and well, in the past 2 years, 5 scored events. Could be six. I doubt it'll be any more than six. It'll probably not going to be any less than five. So somewhere around 5 or 6 events, and you do them all within the course of Thursday at noon through Sunday at noon. So you only have you have 72 hours to complete 5 specific events, we'll call them. We'll get to that when we get there. Um, Again, for those that are new around here, I'm good at CrossFit. I'm not great. When it comes to the open, there's a uh, somewhat of a bias towards the aerobic side of things. What does that mean? Um, the open is meant to be very accessible. Right? Going back to what I said, where CrossFit sort of wants everybody that has any sort of interest in this to participate. So the workouts that they do, that they come out with for this first stage, is usually something that's going to have low barrier of entry. Um, and if there is something like a bar muscle up or a ring muscle up, handstand push up, something weird like that, that starts to get a little bit more advanced within the realm of CrossFit, that's usually in the last workout. Um, and the idea is we have the biggest stage, we have dozens of thousands of people competing. We basically just want to see, like, who's got an engine, who's got lungs, right? They're going to take the top 10% of the um, leaderboard, I guess, the top 10% of finishers from the open. And those will be the people who are then invited and move on to the quarterfinals. And then from the quarterfinals, they take even less of a percentage. It's closer to like the top 2% of the pool from quarterfinals that get to move on to the third stage. It starts to get very, very saturated and elite. That is the goal eventually. Probably not going to happen this year. We'll talk about goals in a second. So, anyway, 1, 2, 3, 4 podcasts. We'll have an in between week there, which I'll probably find some way to talk about, goals for the quarterfinals or something like that. And then a quarterfinals recap podcast uh, where we'll kind of talk about, we'll compare and contrast last year to this year, all that fun stuff. So for the next month and a half, lock in. We're going to be talking CrossFit. Let's talk about last year. And when we talk about last year, the reason we do that is so that we can have markers for this year. We have something to shoot for. We have a goal. Most of you who have set out on an athletic journey before or have dedicated themselves to some physical feat of endurance or strength, there is generally a hard, like very tangible number specific goal, right? Now in CrossFit, the workout specific, there's so many um, movements and different combinations of workouts that I don't know what my times are going to be. We can't really judge the details of each workout, but we can judge where I finish relative to the field, right? So for me, these goals are going to be placement based. What place in the world will I get in the open? What place in the world will I get? Or no, what place in the United States will I get in the open? And then the website, although this doesn't matter as much, does allow me to even go in and figure out what place, where I placed amongst guys in Iowa that are my age, my division, all fun things like this. So a lot to look at, a lot to kind of digest. Um, and when we go back to last year was the first real competitive season that I decided to, and I'm a dumbass for this because I found and have enjoyed CrossFit since I was 18 years old, 17 years old. Last year at 27, well, it would have been, yeah, it would have been at 27 years old was the first time that I decided, you know what, fuck it, it was at 26 actually when I decided it. Um, Back in the year 2021, in the fall, after the CrossFit Games in 2021, I decided, you know what? I'm working from home now. My life had stabilized a little bit, career wise, financially, time wise, schedule wise. And I said, let's make a run at seeing how actually good I could be at this CrossFit thing. From 23 to 26, I'd moved back to Des Moines and I was bouncing around jobs. Training was never, I never had a chance to sort of settle in and focus on myself. I was still training an hour a day, you know, healthy, athletic, looking good, fit. But I never had the chance to sit down and say, what if we actually prioritize our life a little bit around training and see what we can do? So in 2021, we did that. We built out an entire year ahead of time, 4 phase training season that lasted from September all the way through the Open. And I said, you know what? Let's give it 6 months and let's see what the boy can do. Right. In my head going into this, before I ever did any of that, before we started that 6 months, um, I had always, and this is not embarrassing, but I'm a little uh, disappointed in myself for thinking this way. I had always believed pretty thoroughly that I genetically was at such a disadvantage that I was never even going to be able to come close to compete with the top people in this sport of CrossFit. And when I say the top people, I mean, you know, when you look at the top 1,000 people in the world, right, who are, if you're top 1,000 in the world, you do CrossFit at a level of intensity and with a level of intention that is competitive, and you're trying to make it somewhat of a, uh, you're trying to be a CrossFit athlete part time at minimum. Many, once you get into the top 500, 400, you're going to see are trying to do it professionally. Never thought I could compete with those people. And that's my own fault. Set my own limitations, and I believed them for a long time. And that might have been a reason why I didn't step into the fire of committing to training hard, and specifically for the competitive season for as long as I did. And so we went through those 6 months, trained really hard. I know how to put together a competitive program and training regimen. And it was really, really cool to see that pay off because last year the calendar turned. It turned to 2022. The Open 1 year ago started. And while I'm not great at the open style workouts, and again, that's hard to explain. You're like, well, aren't you just doing CrossFit? Isn't it the same? It's a different stage. Again, I'm not the most aerobic based. The open workouts are generally going to be formatted in a 10 to 20-minute time frame of a running clock. And because there's so many people competing in the open, a good way to keep separation on the leaderboard and to really start to extrapolate out, okay, here's some clear levels at which people sit on this worldwide ranking. You need workouts where you're going to accumulate a lot of reps, upwards in the 2, 3, 400s of reps, so that there's room for a bunch of people to hit each one of those, you know, 362 reps, 361 reps. You can start to find some separation. Workouts that are built like that are generally going to be aerobic focus, meaning with oxygen. When we're talking exercise science, the people who are best at those they don't necessarily have to be super strong. They don't necessarily have to be super skilled. Um, and they don't necessarily need a lot of strategy. They simply need lungs of steel and just tons of endurance. They can just clear lactic acid like it's their job and they can just go. That's not my forte. Everybody in the CrossFit community, especially once you get into the elite, kind of has um their specialty. Are they a strong guy? Everybody's fit, right? CrossFit is about being all around fit. But naturally, you're going to have your strengths and weaknesses. Straight up aerobic lung capacity is not your boy's thing. It's not your boy's thing. Decent at some of the strength stuff, pretty good at some of the skill stuff. Um, really good at putting it all together when workouts are sort of when you have time to see a workout and kind of, all right, how do we attack this? But pure lungs, it's not my thing. And that is what the open is about. So my highest ever uh, open placement was when I worked at a CrossFit gym. It's back in 2020. We can actually see it right here. I've entered the open 5 times. I did it twice while I was in Iowa or at Iowa. Not sure why I did that. I just wanted to compete and be a part of it so bad that even during all the football shit, spring ball, I would still try and do it. Dumb ideas. Um, and then 2019 and 2020, that was when I was working at the CrossFit gym. I was training an hour a day, but I had other focuses in life. Uh, I placed 9,801st. So just inside the top 10,000 back in 2020. And that's the best I'd ever done up until last year. Oh, excuse me. Last year, obviously, put more into it than I'd ever put into it by a long shot. And it paid off. My worldwide ranking was 5,419th. And in North America, which isn't just the United States, obviously, but it includes Canada and Mexico as well. That ranking was I finished 2,412th. 2,412th. Just outside the top 2,000, 2,020th in the United States alone. So there's a shitload of people who do CrossFit across this country. And last year in the Open, I was just outside the top 2,000. It's not bad. That's not bad. And that's in the stage of competition where I don't really shine, right? So we made the quarterfinals. That was a goal that I had had since 2021. I did not get to compete in 2021. There was a gap year in there because I injured myself, cracked my rib in the spring of 2021. In fact, like the week before the Open. So they implemented the quarterfinals that year, and I was like, "Damn, the quarterfinals is like a stage of competition that I could move on to. Like it would feel like I was competing. It would feel like I had something to train for. I had to wait a whole year, and last year I qualified for the quarterfinals. 2,412th in North America, which would be the region that then I funnel into for the quarterfinals. So we go into the quarterfinals, and I had high hopes. I thought, you know what? It would be fantastic if I could get top 1,000. If I could somehow finagle my way into the top 1,000 CrossFitters in the North American region, I would feel pretty damn good about that. Workouts were, I would say, slightly in my favor. Played to a couple of my strengths. Did not have to do some of the stuff at the quarterfinal level last year that would hurt me as far as some of my weaknesses. And we surprised the shit out of ourselves. We ended up finishing 349th in North American quarterfinals. 349th. And then when you extrapolate that out to the world, as far as all of the regions combined, I think I ended up somewhere 740th, something like that. I was in the top 750 in the world at a more selective stage. Top 350, 349th in the United States and Canada. They take 120 to the next level after that. And I was 349th. Now, granted, you know, I'm 3x down the leaderboard to where the cutoff is for the next level, but that was with 6 months of training, and I had only been doing 2-a-days for, getting up to 3 hours of training a day for maybe 45, 60 days at that point. Came away with that with a belly full of fire, and you guys can go back to the podcasts from last year around this time, 11 months ago, 10, 11 months ago when the quarterfinals finished. And I talk about it and I'm like, damn, like I'm going all in. And go all in we did all the way through November of just 3 months ago. I was training doubles from March through November. I was as fit as I'd ever been, and we got hurt, right? And it put a real, not only that, but we also had the baby on the way, which I knew was coming. Um, but I got hurt, and it was significant. I could hardly get out of bed. My back hurt so bad, and I was, we've talked about it. Couldn't touch a barbell for 2 months. Right, about all I could do was sit on the Peloton. And when you're training CrossFit and you have dozens of movements to be ready for, you lose a step. Most notably, you get a lot less strong. You definitely don't get stronger, and you lose some, right? So, had to take a significant step back. Didn't really start getting back into full on CrossFit training until about a month ago, middle of January. And I basically had 1 month to do as much as I could in prep for tomorrow. Um, and so that leaves me in a weird spot, right? Where do we see this season? What are the goals for myself? Um, and I think we're going to start with just the Open because um, it's a separate thing, right? I got 5,000th in the Open, but I got 740th in the quarterfinals, right? When they start to test some harder stuff. So last year I was 5,419th. Between the three workouts, my best finish was a 5,000th. My worst finish was an 8,500th. So anywhere between the 5,000 and 9,000 mark for the individual workouts. My goal is to simply get better worldwide than I did last year. I've improved every time I entered the Open. And so the goal remains to be that. I need to place better than 5,419th. And because aerobic is my weakness, I was really able to hammer in on that this past year. And when I got hurt, that was about the only thing I could do. So I don't feel like my aerobic has been hurt too bad from the hiccups and the obstacles I've had to face. And that will be what suits me best for this 3-week Open. I should be able to place, realistically, I really should be able to place somewhere down in like the 3,000s, like the high 3,000s. My goal is to get better than, somewhere in the 4,000s. It should be lower than that. That will qualify me for the quarterfinals, and then we'll talk about the quarterfinals when we get there. But the goal is simple, and to stay healthy, because I am still pretty beat up on a daily basis. I'm not getting in as much true recovery as I really wish I could, and we are sort of in a our capabilities are up in the air right now because of the time I had to take off. I truly don't know what I'm capable of. So Friday, when I go to the gym and do this with a couple of buddies, Cole Fisher, former teammate, won a competition in this offseason with him, and a couple of his friends, my goodness, who are extremely fit, have competed down in Miami at one of the biggest CrossFit off-season events, and are both ranked within the top 300 in the world, which was what we're going to end this with, the worldwide rankings. It'll be fun. It'll be a good competition. I'll be nervous. I'll get those anxiety butterflies again, and that's not something that I get to have a lot. And I crave that. It's what I train every day for. The goal coming out of this season with next season being a sort of eyes on the prize year, is the CrossFit system just came out for the first time ever with worldwide rankings. Now, that is not your placing from the Open or quarterfinals. That is an aggregate of the last 2 years of competition. So this goes back all the way to the 2021 season and is a sliding time frame that right now, as it sits, um, accounts for the 21 Open, 21 quarterfinals, 21 semifinals, 21 games, and then last year, all 4 of those stages as well. Because I was not able to compete in 21 and I was hurt, I only have scores from last season. Um, and that means that by adding, I will not be replacing, I will be simply adding points to my overall world ranking, which currently sits somewhere around 3,030. That's like 3,800th. And I should be able to bump that world ranking up to somewhere in the top 1,000 in the world. Um, if you took last year's points that I accumulated and just doubled it so that I had a full score, I would currently be 567th in the world. And that's really, really impressive. I'm proud of that. I can be better, and that is the goal. So, workout comes out tomorrow, um, somewhere in the middle of the day. I will do the workout on Friday, and we will report back here next week to talk about week 1 of the CrossFit Open 2023, my scores, my thoughts, and the ever evolving mind games that I play with myself through these CrossFit games. So buckle up. You're in for some super specific CrossFit talk for the next month and a half. I'm excited for it. Don't care if you are. We'll be back next week. Peace.